I'm Mike Coyle, and you're watching Inside Exploration. Today I'm here with Bob Archer, who is the CEO of Newrange Gold, listed on the TSX Venture under NRG. Bob, thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, Mike. Good to be back.
Yeah, so I guess we have a lot to talk about. It's been a little while since we chatted, but I kind of want to go back to 2019 when we first met and we went to the Pamlico Ridge property, and we were really excited about the prospects of what that could mean, coming on the heels of some really interesting drill results that you had in the Merritt Decline Zone area. But I wanted to know, it's been a couple of years. You've done some exploration. You've drilled over 100 holes there on that property now. How do you feel about the Pamlico Ridge project now, as opposed to what you thought about it when you first joined the company?
Well, I'm still very excited about the project, Mike. I still like it a lot. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I joined the company in the first place. As you know, I joined as a director in 2018, and when I went down there, the company had been repurposed into the U.S. in 2016 from Colombia, and this was the only project that the company had at the time. And but from what I saw at that time, I felt that the project had a lot of potential, and I really did get excited about it, and that was why I came on board. But at that time, the focus was very, very much on that one zone, that the area around the Merritt Decline and Pamlico Ridge, and much of Pamlico Ridge still hadn't been tested, and there were all the underground workings and so on, and so there was still a lot of work to be done. But I did feel that there was a fairly significant gold mineralizing system there, and so I really liked it. But so what transpired over the next couple of years with additional drilling and the work in that area, and sampling the underground workings and so on, is that we realized that it was more difficult than we had anticipated to expand or to follow out the system in detail, and in large part because we were doing reverse circulation drilling, and you don't get any structural information from that, and the geological information is limited, so you're basically joining assays from one hole to the next. And when you're into a very complex structural system, that becomes problematic. And so, we needed to better understand what was controlling the mineralization. And, we couldn't just keep randomly drilling holes, hoping to get more good results. I mean, hope is not a good strategy. We realized kind of, I guess, late last year, well, I shouldn't say last year now, late 2020, early 2021, that we needed to really step back and take a broader view of the project and the surrounding area. And that was when we enlarged the IP program that we were running, and picked up some additional anomalies, did a little bit of scouting on the geology and so on, and realized that there was probably a lot more at work here than we had previously recognized. And so we more than doubled the size of the property, and finished off all that expanded IP. And so in stepping back, what we're now seeing is that all of these zones, in addition to the Pamlico mines themselves, we have the central mine that we've just released results on. We've got the old La Panta mine just to the northeast of that, a new copper zone just to the southeast of La Panta, and then there's the Skarn zone about 3 kilometers southeast of the Merritt zone, as well as intrusive hosted copper mineralization just south of that as well. So we're seeing we've got these sort of 6 or so target areas within about a 30 square kilometer area, about 5 by 6 kilometers, and these are in our minds, undoubtedly related to one large intrusive related system. So it's helping us to get a much better sense of what's ultimately driving all of this, and why there's gold at Pamlico, why there's gold and copper and lead and zinc at Central Mine, why there's polymetallics at La Panta, and just copper to the southeast of that. There's different geology hosting different mineralization, and yet that it's all related. So this is to some people, it might seem like a little bit of a step backwards to be going sort of back to basic principles, but sometimes you have to do that. You got to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. And so it's, yes, it's a little bit more time consuming. We recognize that. Not all investors have the patience to wait it out, and we certainly appreciate the ones that do. But I think it's a necessary step in really understanding what it is that we're doing, and having a much more effective exploration program to increase the odds of success.
It's funny because a reoccurring theme I see time and time again is exploration companies go into these old historic properties thinking, oh yeah, they couldn't have got everything. And honestly, I don't think we give the old time miners enough credit for, what they did. You walk through those old workings, or you crawl through them in some instances, and you can see the mineralization on the wall. To you, it screams there's something here, but it's what you can't see that holds things up. And I mean, you've been trying to drill around all of those old adits and stuff, and some places you have great success. Even the sampling in the adits have been very successful, but bringing that all together seems to have been the challenge. But now you've identified these 6 targets, so maybe give me an idea of like, which one are you going to prioritize going into 2022? Where's your focus going to be? Because you just put out some news about Central Mine, but you've also talked about the copper, you've talked about the skarn, the larger intrusive body that's driving this. What's going to be your focus in 2022?
Well, following on the results that we just achieved at Central Mine, and I mean, those results just came in, so we were pleasantly surprised with what we got there. And so there's obviously some follow-up that needs to be done there. The 91 zone that we had planned on drilling anyways is just lies below and just on the eastern flank of the Central Mine, about 100 meters below surface. And so now we need to figure out, okay, how is that 91 zone related to what we're seeing at surface that they mined in the past. So we definitely have some more work to do there. Some of it we can do on surface, some of it will require drilling. We have some more surface work to do at the La Panta mine, because we really haven't done very much up there at all. And that's a small past producer as well. And then there's the skarn zone. We've been doing some more surface sampling down in there, and getting some scattered gold and copper values down in that area as well, which we need to better understand before we can get back to drilling. So I would say that there's probably a few months left of surface work to especially given the 6 to 8 week turnaround time at the labs, in order to really get enough information there to properly rank these various target areas, in order to get ourselves set up for the next drill program, which potentially might be around April, something like that. And then, based on what we find with all of that, we will definitely be back in drilling, in the Pamlico Ridge and the Merit Zone again as well. But, we do want to get a better understanding of what we're dealing with there, because, we can't just keep going back in and just sort of blindly poking holes, hoping, to get good results. That just doesn't work. So, but it's going to be a busy year, I think.
I'm glad you said that, because my next question is going to be exactly that. So, you've always been eager to get some diamond drill holes in there, because like you said earlier, with RC, you don't really get that geological information that helps you in future planning. You just get assays, gold or no gold. Right. What did you learn from your core drilling that you did this year, or last year rather?
We, from the limited drilling that we did do, we actually learned quite a bit. Unfortunately, in that area, Nevada in general has a bad reputation for core recoveries and broken ground and so on. And certainly the Pamlico area is no exception. And it's maybe worse than some, but, there were areas where we did get a lot of good structural information from the drilling and lithological information as well. So it was good in that respect. And we drilled the 4 holes, as you know, around that hole 115, which got some very interesting high grade intercepts. And those 4 holes that we drilled, sort of, one in front, one behind, and one to either side of hole 115, were all drilled in the same direction as 115, and to try and get a bit of an understanding as to which way the zone was trending. And we did do that to some degree, but what I think we're looking at in that immediate Pamlico area is that it's what we might call a shatter zone. And so instead of being one nice discrete structure, series of quartz veins that you can follow, which is sometimes the case in other geological environments, the mineralization at Pamlico is on fine fractures and narrow veinlets and so on, and sometimes they have a bit of continuity and other times they don't, and this is where it gets tricky to just step out and drill an adjacent hole and think that you're going to get the same thing, because clearly that's not always the case. So it is going to take a bit of rethinking as to how we approach Pamlico. And from your visit there that that particular area is also sort of very undulating topography. It's quite hilly and so on, and it can be tricky trying to get drills into some of those slopes, and especially the bigger RC rigs. It's a challenging area to drill, most certainly. And the pandemic and the labor shortage in the industry really increased the challenges for drilling, particularly for diamond drilling. You've probably seen elsewhere, because we're certainly hearing it from it's worldwide, really. It's not just Nevada, it's not just the US or Canada. It's coming from South America, where there's an extreme labor shortage for experienced drillers. We contact drilling companies and they'll say that, yeah, we've got drills sitting in the yard. We can sign a contract, but there's no guarantee that we'll have anybody to staff them. And that's largely what we found, that it was very difficult to get experienced drillers, and so productivity was poor. That drives the costs up, and so there just came a point partway through the program where we just had to terminate it, because it just wasn't cost efficient, and it wasn't a good use of shareholders' money. And so we had to just kind of take a break, and we'll have to assess how we come back to that. But we did learn, we did get some good geological information from the diamond drilling, and I wish it was as easy as just saying, yeah, we'll just go right back in there and do some more of that. But we'll have to make that call when the time arises.
Absolutely. I'm still looking forward to Pamlico. I still think, like you say, there's a larger intrusive body there. I've been waiting for some confirmation on a theory that I came up with when I first went onto the property, but we'll just leave that alone and we'll wait and see what future results bring. Argosy. I really want to talk about Argosy.
Yeah.
I recently been doing some digging around the area, and I looked really in detail at the Springpole deposit, which is 10 kilometers south of you. Geologically, that's minuscule. You've got yourself some really nice property in this camp with the past producing Argosy gold mine and the Western Fold property. Talk to us first about the acquisition of the Argosy gold mine. How, why, and how long have you been eyeballing this?
Well, I guess you could say, well, my familiarity with the project goes back to early 2000s, because I was the CEO of a junior company called CanGold back in those days. And with CanGold, we were the last company to actually drill that property from 2002 to 2004. But then it was still a difficult market back in those days, and hard to finance narrow vein and high grade gold in the Canadian Shield, and a lot of the focus was on Mexico, and you'll recall it was 2003, 2004 that I started Great Panther. And with the focus being in Mexico there, we effectively transitioned CanGold to Mexico to sort of leverage off of Great Panther's success down there. And so the focus for CanGold changed, and we never really got back to working the Argosy project. And then CanGold was acquired by Great Panther because for one of the Mexican projects in 2015. And so Great Panther, Argosy effectively became like an orphan project for Great Panther, because it was the only project that they had in Canada. They really had no intention of doing anything with it while they focused on silver production in Latin America. And so, with Newrange, I just, with the focus on North Birch, and we had already picked up the option on the North Birch projects just to the west. So with Springpole advancing, and then we had North Birch as a grassroots project right there, it just made perfect sense for us to pick up Argosy. And so I just, I went back to the current management of Great Panther, and we just worked out a deal that was a win-win. And we acquired CanGold, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of Great Panther, and Argosy was the only project that the company had in Canada. So through that, we get the project, great location, past producer in a hot area, and Great Panther gets shares in Newrange and can participate in the success as we move forward. So that's ultimately how it all came about. So I do have a lot of familiarity with the project, and I think it has great potential.
What's access to the property like?
Well, right now it's fly-in only. As you mentioned, Springpole is only about 10 kilometers away, and most of that 10 kilometers is across Birch Lake, so it's on water. So it's fairly easily accessible at this time of year when everything's frozen. Otherwise, it's fly-in. So we'd fly in on float plane to Summit Lake, or over to the North Birch project just to the west on Johnston Lake, where our camp is.
So having said that, I guess you're going to be moving your equipment in once all the ice roads are complete or things are frozen up there. So what's your exploration plan for the Argosy or the North Birch project? Which are you going to be focusing on?
Yeah, so the drilling right now, we're looking at tentatively the first week of February to start the drilling. We're waiting for the completion of the winter road up into that area, so we can get as close as we can before flying the drill and all the equipment and everything in. And we will start with North Birch project simply because we were actually in there last summer, as you may recall, and ready to drill, and we had the sites prepared, we had the trails, and everything was ready, the camp was built, and then the area got hit by wildfires, and we basically had to evacuate everybody before we even got the drill in there, and couldn't get a helicopter to even mobilize the drill because they were all busy fighting forest fires. So we had to postpone everything, but everything is ready to go at North Birch, and so we'll drill that first, and then just move the drill across to Argosy. And so we should be drilling Argosy by, I would say, early to mid-March, somewhere in that time frame. And then we'll be drilling through into April, I guess, as long as we can, up until breakup.
So how many holes are you planning on putting in each of these properties?
Well, right now at North Birch, we'll probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 holes. Given that the target horizon there has never been drilled before, it's you could say we're not really sure what we're going to get. That's very much the case with grassroots projects, and So we'll gauge that as we go, but it'll be somewhere in that range, probably around 2,000 meters, something like that, maybe a little bit more. And then over at Argosy, we're just putting together the program now. It'll probably end up being more holes because some of them will be shallower, but probably in the same range in terms of total footage. So sort of minimum 2,000 meters, maybe up to 2,500, something like that, depending on productivity and budgets and what have you. We're just finalizing a three-dimensional model for the Argosy, and where we've taken all the historical information, all the old drilling, the underground workings. We've tried to bring it all together in a 3D model, which we hope they will be able to release that soon. And but in the interim, even just working with a sort of a draft model, if you like, it's good enough that we can use that for building the program for targeting our new holes. So we can see what veins have been mined before and where the potential to expand those veins are, because that the mine only went down to 900 feet, which is about 270 meters. And for anyone familiar with Canadian geology, at least in Eastern Canada, the vertical dimension is usually the greatest, and these things can go for 1,000 meters or more. So we certainly think that it has tremendous depth potential. So we will be drilling some deeper holes below the old workings, and in the neighborhood of where some of the deeper holes were drilled before, or perhaps deeper. But they only mined from 4 veins according to the historical records, and we know that there are at least 13, and probably more, because a lot of these are sort of on echelon or vein swarms. And so when you project a vein from one drill hole to the next, sort of thing, you don't necessarily know for sure that it's the same vein. It could be, but it could be offsets, or it could be on echelon, or so there's certainly more work to be done. But there's a lot of potential there to build that up, and over time work towards building up a new resource on the property.
Now, you're familiar with the area, very familiar. You've spent almost 20 years kind of working up there. With all the success in the Red Lake mining camp, you would naturally think that the Birch-Uchi would kind of follow the same exploration path, but for whatever reason, it still remains relatively underexplored. Why is that?
It's a good question, Mike. I often ask myself the same thing. We talk about lack of access, and then there's just fads or trends, or like I mentioned in the early 2000s, the focus was on Mexico and Latin America, and everybody wanted to rush off to there, and certainly there are advantages because you can work year round, and the climate's great. And I mean, let's face it, when it's 20, 30, 40 below in Northern Ontario, who wouldn't rather be somewhere in Mexico, when it's, you just take away the zero, or take away the minus sign.
No, thanks.
But at any rate, it's partly that, and the lack of access, having to fly in, and it's a tough one. But I think most people watching this are going to be familiar with Great Bear and the success that they've had in the Red Lake area. But if you look at the old geological maps for this region, it's white in that area down around Dixie Lake. It's not pink or green or indicating the geology. It was never mapped by the government. It's just white. There's no information whatsoever. And that map dates to the 60s. It has been updated somewhat since then, but it just goes to show how so much of this area of Northwestern Ontario is completely underexplored. And it has amazing potential. It really does. And part of my experience up there was with Placer Dome and working throughout the region, but even up as far north as the Musselwhite mine up in Papamuskin Lake. And, that was a syndicate of companies that held that for, I think more than 10 years. And they advanced the project a little bit at a time. And, I was working on the pre-feasibility study up there in 1994. And when I think the original discovery had been made back in the early 70s by the Musselwhite brothers. And Placer put it into production in 1997, and it's still in production. It's Newmont Gold Corp that owns it now, and it's between past production and reserves. It's more than 8 million ounces, and yet these they're out there. It's an area that I think still has tremendous potential.
Well, I mean, look at Springpole. Springpole deposit's almost 5 million ounces now. It looks like they're probably going to be going into production within the next couple of years. I guess you could probably piggyback off of the success of that discovery, but is that on a geological trend with the Springpole deposit, or do you think you have something independent of?
It's probably both. I think there's definitely a relationship there. I mean, they're close enough. As you say, 10 kilometers in geological terms is not very far. But it's not like they're on one particular structure. The geology of the Springpole deposit is quite different from the geology at Argosy, and they would both be different again from North Birch, if indeed there is an iron formation hosted deposit there. That's all reflective of the local geology and the host rocks and the local structure. I think what's important is that when you start to look at these orogenic mesothermal type deposits, these were deposited at tremendous depths. When the crust was being formed, and so the gold, the source of the gold is likely related, from one to the other, but the host environment for individual deposits is going to be a little bit different. So you have to take all of that into consideration. But and this is where. Again, coming back to that bigger picture district scale approach, where you have to have an understanding of the relationship between these different deposits, even though they can be very close and they are without question related. But the details, of what you see at surface, and therefore how you have to develop your exploration approach and the models that you use, are going to differ from one project to the other. And just like at Pamlico, even though these different zones are only a few kilometers apart, there are differences between them that you have to take a slightly different approach, in order to increase the odds of success.
Well, I'm looking forward to your exploration campaigns. I'm still very bullish on Pamlico. I loved what I seen there, and I love how you've expanded the exploration program. I always wondered, why are we just focusing on merit? And I always projected to the open market that I think we should expand beyond that. So to see you actually do that last year was really great. And all the geophysics are there, the grab samples are there. Awesome. I wish you the best success on that. Argosy, I can't wait to get my boots on the ground. I want to see this project for myself, because you've told me lots of nice things about it, and I'm looking forward to that. But good luck in 2022 in your exploration efforts, Bob, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike. We'll be looking forward to getting you up there. I know you had some good success finding visible gold down at Pamlico, and it's relatively easy to find at Argosy. So there's a lot of visible gold there. Average grade used to be 12.7 grams, and so I don't think you'll have any trouble finding some more gold up there.
I'll be sure to bring my loop, because I need a few more rocks for that top shelf up there. It's looking pretty empty.
You can see it. You can see it without the loop. So.
Perfect. I love the sound of that. All right, Bob. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, and thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Mike. Happy New Year.